Dang, that's been good too.
Okay, it says we're live again, right?
Almost there. Yeah.
Are we back?
Okay. Yeah, I think we're live.
All right, we're back. Had some technical difficulties. Again, it's another one of those, we're adapting to the new environment we're in, and now everybody wants to use the internet even more so than we were before. So just to get back to it, National Guard is again stepping up to the plate across the nation and the states that we all reside in. And Idaho's no different. We have soldiers that are on state active duty, which is different from federal active duty. And they are fulfilling a state mission right now in supporting food banks and other things as required by counties. So the National Guard is immensely important to what we do and to the functioning of the state. And we're going to continue to do this. So Sergeant Major and I'll let him explain a few things on his side of being the subject matter expert, but we've had lots of questions about shipping. We've had lots of questions about the safety of soldiers. How do things work at MEPS? What's going on at basic training sites? Am I going to ship? Am I not going to ship? Those are all very valid questions, and almost daily we have discussions with Washington, D.C. and headquarters out there in order to fully understand and know and how to best serve you soldiers. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Major Cole and have him cover a few things specifically in that area.
All right, thank you, sir. So let's talk about shipping. I know that we're looking at the counter there. We have about 186 of our RSP soldiers that are online watching this right now. So let's talk about your shipping dates. So we back up and we listen to what the commander just said, and he's talking about daily conversations, and what he's saying there, that's not a facetious statement. We are getting no less than 2 to 3 emails a day on relevant changes that are occurring across the Department of Defense. So in the morning, we get a status update. Hey, who's going to be shipping the next few days? And in the afternoon, we get status updates. What does our next shipping week look like? And that changes every single day. So best case scenario, you're scheduled to ship in as early as 72 hours out, meaning if you're shipping on a Monday or Tuesday, you might have your ship date canceled that Thursday or Friday. It's just the way it is. And, we don't control, the go or the stop portion of that. We take our marching orders just like everybody else does. So, but let's say you're shipping, you got a ship date that's coming up, right? The RSP NCO, the one that's been in constant contact with you, he's going to reach out to you starting at 14 days before your shipping time. And he's going to ask you some targeted questions. And those questions are basically to see if you're feeling sick, right? So he's going to reach out, he's going to ask you some questions, and he's just going to get a verbal confirmation from you that you're good to go to ship. And then he's probably going to reach out to you somewhere between 9 or 10 days prior to shipping, ask you the same questions. And then he's going to reach out to you 4 to 5 days before shipping and ask you the same questions. And even though you're not seeing anything, you're only hearing these questions, he's actually creating the paperwork that shows that he's talked to you. He's reached out to you, and he's sending that paperwork directly to me because I'm the single point of contact in the state when it comes to all things shipping while we're under these, different circumstances. So he's reaching out to you, and then at 72 hours before you go, he's going to start calling you and talking to you and asking these questions every single day. And then when it's time for you to go down to the hotel, and, we ship people from all over the state. So, for those of you that live in Meridian and Nampa, it's a pretty short drive into Boise. But you got to remember that, we have people live up in Coeur d'Alene. So that recruiter's going to show up in his government vehicle. He's going to ask you questions at your house. He's going to have a mask for you. Everybody's going to have a mask, so we can make sure that we're following the DoD guidance on how we socially distance. And he's going to take your temperature. And he's going to record that temperature. And if you're good to go, when it comes to, taking that temperature, you can get in the vehicle, you'll be sitting in the back, and everybody else can be sitting in the front, and they're going to drive you down to the hotel. And you're going to go to the hotel, and they're going to take your temperature again when you get to the hotel. And they're going to ask you the same exact question. So at this point, you've been asked, 5 or 6 times in the course of 14 days, the same exact questions over and over. But it's really important, and it's pretty relevant that we make sure that, if you're healthy, that you stay healthy. If you're having signs or symptoms, or you potentially could have this virus, we don't want to put you on a plane. We don't want to put you around other people, and you would appreciate that as well. If you're at the training base and you don't want somebody from Tennessee or Oklahoma or Oregon getting on a plane who's showing signs and symptoms and to be shipped into the bay where you're going to be for the next 10 weeks. So you're going to be asked all these questions. You're going to have your temperature taken. You're going to get on a plane. You're going to go. You're going to get off the plane. You're going to show up to basic training. So at this point, you've done a 14-day quarantine process here at the house. And you've attested to the fact that, yes, I'm not going to Big Al's and hanging out. I'm not trying to watch movies. I'm not rolling around without my mask. I did my best case scenario to, stay socially distanced from everybody. And then what's going to happen is you're going to show up at your basic training site, and you're going to be immediately quarantined again for 2 weeks. They're going to gather you all up. You're going to be given barracks, and they're going to be taking your temperatures on a daily basis. You're going to ask them these questions on a daily basis. Only this time it's going to be your drill sergeants walking around asking you these questions. So you're going to go through a 2-week quarantine process when you show up to the basic training site. And then everybody that makes it through the quarantine process, doesn't show any signs or symptoms, you are placed into a basic training company, and you will start your 8-week basic training. So they've had to adjust the dates a little bit, or not dates, but kind of the timelines. But the reality is that TRADOC, the Idaho Army National Guard, and the United States Army, they're doing absolutely everything that they can to ensure that your safety is paramount, no matter what. But the reality is we got to keep training, right? We have to keep this thing has to keep moving forward, step by step. America needs its soldiers. So this is the plan, and this is how it works. It's been working really well. So when you show up to these training bases, places like Fort Jackson, Fort Sill, Fort Leonard Wood, they've had a few cases there, but all of those cases, those people immediately get quarantined, they get removed from training, and they're taken care of kind of an offsite location so training can continue. So really, it stands to reason that some of the safest places for you to go and you to conduct your training, or you to even be during this time, during when the virus is kind of growing and spreading around the United States, is at an RA installation going through basic training, because they've done everything they can up to the point to ensure that all chance has been removed from this equation. So that's kind of in a nutshell what it's going to look like 14 days prior to you shipping, getting on the plane and shipping, and then showing up to basic combat training. So, sir?
Yeah, so there's a few questions coming in. I'll answer one of them right now because that's really the current status, and we don't really have much more on unless we have a lot of very specific things, but most people wouldn't understand them, and so we're not going to go through those, when and how some of that occurs. But one question that came in is a pretty good one. So, how is the National Guard used in a situation like this when it's not a federal mission? There's a federal and there's a state mission, and we join the Guard, and sometimes there's an impression or expectation that, hey, if something happens, we're all going to go running out the door and go meet it head on. And what happens is county commissioners and county emergency response teams, they request assistance from the state of Idaho through a very specific process. And then the state of Idaho allocates assets. Sometimes that's the National Guard. Sometimes that's just shifting something else from another county. So when they do utilize guardsmen, they have to go through a process to bring you on state active duty. There has to be a funding stream that goes with that, and there has to be authority that comes from the governor of the state of Idaho. So when we have anything that happens, we're not an immediate response. We're kind of after they've made an assessment, and usually an emergency has gone on for at least a week or so before the National Guard is brought in. It may have happened differently in the past, but that's how things work now. It looks like there's a lot of questions coming in about drilling, online drilling, and shipping AIT. I'll turn it over to Sergeant Major. I'll let you take the next one.
Okay, so I'm looking at two specific questions here that are pretty close, and it states many of our ship dates have been delayed because of the coronavirus. Is there any news on when we are going to ship the basics? So, as it sits right now, RSP Warriors, you have a ship date. When you raise your right hand down at MEPS, they gave you a ship date, and those have not changed. And what we're attempting to do here is make sure that everybody whose ship date has been set, that you meet those ship dates. And you'll know most oftentimes 72 hours out, like I said earlier, if you're not going to ship or not. Let's say you've got a May 15th ship date. So sometime around the 1st of May, the RSP NCO is going to reach out and going to call you, and he's going to start that 14-day question period prior to you shipping. So, you know, in a direct response to your question there's no blanket statement like everybody's ship dates have been pushed. That's not happening. As it stands right now, we've been following this new shipping process since I'd say probably about the 18th of March. So really, we've been doing it for about 30 days now. We've only had 9 soldiers whose dates have been canceled and then renegotiated. Okay. So along the lines of the renegotiation, let's talk about this. Soldiers right now, some of you are sitting there and you've got a $20,000 sign-on bonus for the MOS that you signed up for. And when you went to MEPS, they were pretty direct with you. You have to leave at this day, at this time. You have to take this MOS to get this bonus, right? And all of a sudden you get the call and your ship date's canceled. Well, your bonus isn't canceled. Okay, you get to keep everything that you signed on the dotted line for when you went up to MEPS originally. You get to keep that. Okay, all of that stuff is still good, and the United States military is honoring all of that. So in case there's a few questions that come in on that, just know if you signed for a specific entitlement, benefit, or bonus, it's there for you still. Okay, and I think somebody just asked in what specific ways will the coronavirus affect the way basic training will be done? Okay, we kind of answered that, but I'll step it back and make sure that we'll go with a little bit simpler response. So typically you go to basic training and you sit anywhere between 4 and 10 days in the reception battalion, and then you go through a 10-week basic training period. What they've done is they've taken basic training and they've given it 10 solid weeks. The first 2 weeks is quarantine, 8 weeks of training. Back in the day, 20, 25 years ago, basic training for the United States Army was 8 weeks. So they have the ability to, I'm not going to say cram, but they can get all of their training needs met in an 8-week period, and that's what they've done. So you want to take the next one?
Yep, there were a couple, and we question. Next drill will be my last before I ship. Will I fill out the paperwork with the recruiter at my home if the next drill is online again? Yes. And there's a couple different ways of doing that. They'll either come to your home, put the paperwork on your doorstep, or maintain the social distancing that we are being asked to do still for at least in the next couple of weeks, or possibly further. But they'll make sure that the paperwork gets to you, or there'll be an online way of doing that. We're working through the details of being able to sign paperwork online or digitally. There's some things that have to have that in-person signature, and they're working through the legalities of whether or not we can do something different. But in general, paperwork will come to you. If we don't have drill next month, or if you're still on a digital drilling status, then somebody will still come. We can't meet in big groups, but your recruiters and necessary paperwork can still be done in a face-to-face or close to face-to-face environment. We do expect next month that we will be back to drilling with some conditions and other things that go with that, though, as far as social distancing activities we can and can't do. They're working through that right now. and we'll, as we get the guidance, it'll go out to both the recruiters and the RSP coordinators so that we can give you kind of an update on that one. But yes, we're tracking your paperwork, what's needed. We'll make sure that it gets accomplished one way or the other. You have another question, Sergeant Major? Has one rolled in already?
All right, no, I'm not seeing it. We got quite a few people online though, and I imagine somebody just posted, "Hey,
I've got
is the
another
Q&A
one.
frozen?"
What?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So I've got another one here. It says it's out of Alpha Company. If ship dates do end up changing, do you lose bonuses or other portions? No. I think that Sergeant Major kind of covered some of this, but we are doing everything to renegotiate contracts with the support nationally from the National Guard Bureau, which is who we take all of our marching orders from, to renegotiate your contracts and maintain all of your benefits and everything that you signed up for initially. They're doing everything to ensure, and as of right now, we haven't lost any bonuses, any of the stuff that you have signed up for. We haven't had any loss of that. So Idaho, it's on us to make sure that we're staying on top of this. We have been. There's other states that are struggling, bigger states that have a larger pool of soldiers to deal with. But as far as Idaho right now, it's not an issue that we're dealing with. I'll do another one since I've got one here. Out-of-state shipping. We know that we had some people, especially college students, BSU, BYU, Idaho, ISU, Lewis and Clark State College, a few others, that were sent home and they're finishing their college online from home. We're working through the details on shipping. You will be shipping out of a different MEPS, most likely. And it just depends on where you are. It's the same basic shipping process as far as you have to do your 14 days or prep ahead of time. And then you'll be asked all the same questions like the Sergeant Major said. You'll go through all the temperature checks, but you may be shipping out of a different MEPS or a different location. And we will handle those cases one by one. Nothing is being lost. We're aware of all of your situations, what your shipping dates are, when you're supposed to be leaving, and your local, both recruiters and RSP coordinators they're on top of that right now. So, Sergeant Major, any comments or anything to add there?
Yeah. So as far as out-of-state shipping, just like the commander did say, they're absolutely trying to work through the ability, the legalities, to try to make this kind of a seamless process. What you need to remember, though, is this is still very much an organization that deals in, hard paper, hard documents, pen and ink. If you enlisted here, at the Boise MEPS, and you went back home, and say you went back to California, went back to Utah, went back to, say you went someplace in the Midwest, you went back to Kansas. The issue you're going to run into is everything has to be, we like to use the term snail mail, but yet it has to be mailed. So all of your documents has to be put into the mail and mailed to that MEPS for them to generate the paperwork for that. So typically how that would work is 30 days before you ship, that's when they start pulling all your airline tickets, cutting your orders to go active duty to the active duty training base you're going to be assigned. So they're trying to find a way around that to get through those sections of red tape, streamline that process. It's very much a virtual world. It's very much a digital world, especially when we're inside. So they're working their way around that. So for the next 2 to 3 weeks, if you enlisted here in Boise at the Boise MEPS, most likely you're going to have to ship out of the Boise MEPS. But like the commander did say, they are working a way around that so that the closest MEPS that you live to is going to be the one that you can drive down to and you can ship out of. And then you will go through the same process that you're going through now. So, but there's going to be more on that. And the second we get those information updates, we push that information out to the RSP NCOs. And your RSP NCOs, you know, they're reaching out to you every 48 hours at a minimum. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How's your family doing? Is there anything you need from us? And if you don't hear from your RSP NCO, at a minimum, every 48 hours, you need to pick up the phone, you need to send a text message, you need to reach out to us, because we absolutely want to hear from you. You know, the commander and I we're back and forth on emails all day long, talking to National Guard Bureau, talking to our counterparts and our peers all over the world. And there's a tendency, especially with all this information that's flying around, that, you know, we can lose sight of what's truly important, and that is the soldiers in this organization. And it's not, you know, because we don't care. It's just a very busy time. Things are constantly changing. So if you don't hear from us at a minimum every 48 hours, pick up the phone and give us a call, because I assure you, we absolutely want to hear from you. Next question, sir.
Okay, there's two questions. One, there was our moms or parents allowed to ask questions? Yes, please do. Get on and ask the questions in here. And the question was, my son reports to looks like basic training or FLW on September 14th. Right now, September 14th is so far out. The expectation is those dates right now aren't going to be affected or impacted. And of course, they're looking for cures or inoculations prior to that hopefully come into play, make it an even safer environment. So we can't really give you an answer right now on September 14th, but as things have been evolving and developing and changing, they're getting better. They got worse for a long time. Now they're getting better. And so the expectation by September 14th, we will have stabilized and be working back to where we're at full capacity again. And that kind of follows in with the second question I had here was, with how temperamental the political situation is with COVID-19, is there a possibility that this plan could change? Yes. The plan has changed weekly. When everything happened in late February, early January, it was daily and multiple times a day. It's kind of settling down as people find their battle rhythm and in leadership, both state and nationally. And as MEPCOM basic training sites, as everyone begins to deal with what the best practices are or figure that out, things are changing and stabilizing. And so there's going to be continual changes, again, until there's some kind of vaccine, like the flu vaccine, or other control measures that get us back to the new normal. So, and I'll reiterate what the Sergeant Major said. We'll continue to push that out as we get those changes, as soon as we get those changes, and so that it's not a surprise to any of you. Back over to you, Sergeant Major.
Okay, two questions. One, if we re-enlist, can we choose the same MOS? Yeah, typically the assumption is if you're choosing to re-enlist that you're going to come back into something you're already trained in. I feel like there's more to that. If we miss the mark on that answer, type it up, send it again. We'll give you a more clear answer. So what if our ship date is already passed and the new one is to be determined? Any info on the new ship dates? This is my last question, I promise. Hey, it doesn't have to be your last question. Ask away, it doesn't matter. So the to be determined. So what happened is the Department of Defense on the 6th of April kind of threw a wrench into the system. And late Friday afternoon, they contacted us and they're like, hey, we're not shipping starting 6th of April until the 20th of April. Make all your changes. Surprise, haha, goodbye. And they hung up. So if you're a part of that to be determined group, it's really because nationwide, there was over 800 some people, I think, that just had their shipping windows adjusted. So if you haven't heard from your RSP NCO, it's not because they forgot about you and they don't want you to get on the plane. It's because we are kind of going in order based off of state strength and all these other factors that they keep track of to get those renegotiations handled and get you on the plane. So I think that's probably a longer response than maybe what you were prepared for. The shorter answer is it's still to be determined. But the second we know, we'll contact you. And really, along those lines too, your RSP NCO is going to be reaching out to you. we understand that you've got a life, and we understand that your life has been turned completely upside down. So the best option that we can come up with is to call you and say, hey, NGB wants to renegotiate your shipping date for this date. And, you know, let's say that's 40 days down the line. Can you do this date? You know, how does that look for your life? Things that are going on in your life, et cetera, et cetera. Can you go sooner? Do you need to go later? So those questions are going to get asked to you too as well. And we understand, believe me, don't be afraid to speak up. Hey, I've got a family reunion here, or, you know, my wife is due to have a baby now. I'd like to be here for the baby. Everything can be considered. Now's your time to have those conversations with your RSP NCO. So turn it over to you, sir.
Okay. There was a question about the Warrior Challenge and next month. Next month we expect to be back again to drilling. And I mentioned that a little bit earlier. We'll have to specifically get to, you know, what that means and what that's going to look like with the state surgeon and the state staff at the National Guard level. They're giving us their advice, and they're giving us the guidance on what we can and can't do as far as that. That's why we've paused our normal monthly training with you. We prefer to be with you. It's much more engaging. It's much more fun. It's why we joined the Guard. It's why we're here. It's what we're all about. But we're doing everything we can to ensure that we're coming up with activities that we can justify paying you, so that you're not out monies during this time. And that was our number one thing. What can we do? You know, for those of you RSP soldiers out here on this is part of your required training for the drill weekend, and it's a good opportunity for you to bring up your concern. For next month, you know, we're going to look at, as they begin kind of a soft opening of the state, what does that mean for us? What does that mean? And what can we accomplish safely? Do we have the masks? What kind of training can we not do? Those are all being discussed right now. And some of that is it's very contingent upon, like, the rise in cases. It's contingent upon the treatment, the recovery. So we're not going to know till probably 2 weeks from now what that drill will actually look like, and if we're going to be able to do the Warrior Challenge. So we want to do that. That's the engaging stuff. That's the cool guy stuff that we want you to be hands-on with and doing. And we're fighting to get back to that, but we have to do it safely. Your health, our health as an organization is number one. Safety of soldiers it trumps everything else. So let's see if I have another one here. Again, how long basic training's 8 weeks. Do you have another one, Sergeant Major, while I look through here?
I do. We got a couple here. So it says, how long will the basic training 2-week quarantine at the beginning be in effect? So if you're watching the news, you can tell that in this, the coronavirus is hitting every state differently. But for Idaho, you know, our governor's already talking about soft opening, bringing things back online. There's other states out there that are not in the same place. And when you go to basic training, it draws people in from every single state. So you're going to have people in your basic training company, in your basic training platoons from all over the United States. And there's some states out there that have said that they're going to be under a stay-at-home order until the end of July. They've already posted it, and the governor's already signed it. So, you know, kind of like when you go running and you do a platoon run, you're only as fast as the slowest guy. Well, that's really how the situation is nationwide too. You can expect these things that they've put in place for us, these additional safety precautions, to go until everybody in the nation has been returned to standard operating procedure, you know, until normal ops resume. So you can expect that 2-week quarantine to stay in effect probably all through summer. I wouldn't suspect that it's going to be any different come August or September. So next one I got before I turn it back over to you, will my ship date, that's at the beginning of June, will my basic training be affected, you can just plan on it being affected right now. So I think we said earlier that we're not going to cancel any ship dates from anybody until we absolutely have to. So if you have a ship date in June, plan on going in June. The only thing that you should probably plan on being different is you are going to go through a 14-day quarantine followed by an 8-week basic training cycle. So on to you, sir.
Okay, two really good questions that just came in. So we have split ops, and we have our juniors that are getting ready to go and still have to get back for the next school year. And we have school and shipping in general. If you're in school and school's now going to be extended. Both great questions. That's kind of a case-by-case situation. We've been discussing that with National Guard Bureau. That was one of the first questions we brought up actually, 4 or 5 weeks ago when we saw this train coming down the tracks. We don't have an answer for you right now. They're working on what that means. At the bare minimum, it's a renegotiation. But again, the folks out in Washington, D.C. are very aware of keeping the benefits that you signed up for. So if you got a bonus, how do we make sure that doesn't disappear? They're talking about extending the times because you have to be done with AIT within 2 years of the day you sign up. So if you're a junior and you do a split op, you have to do this within 2 years. Well, we're talking about extending that now, that if you can't ship this summer because of this, this may push it to next summer, but they'll make it so that you're not going to lose any of the things that you signed up for. There's some school districts that are going to end at the same time they planned on ending. They're just doing it online. There's some school districts that are going to go a little bit longer. Again, we're working through each one of those school districts one at a time. So if you have a specific question or you have a specific concern, make sure you leave that this weekend with the RSP coordinator, with your recruiter, so that we can work that specific issue by itself. We're doing one. Everybody has a unique situation here. We have to account for each one of you. It's very hard when there's over 200 of you, but that's our job. That's what we're paid to do. That's what we have committed to in being where we are. So bring those questions up, make sure we know about them, and we'll continue to work through them and get you answers as soon as possible. One thing that can help us is that the sooner you know when your school year is going to end, the sooner you have answers from your school districts that you can forward that up to us, the easier it is for us to find a solution for you. So we'll get back to you again on the split out portion of things. Please don't let that discourage you from staying in. We need you. You're important to us. And we want to ensure that this experience is as rewarding for you as it has been for the two of us. Well, we don't want to lose you because of these huge hurdles we're dealing with. We want to come through this stronger, and we're only going to do that if you stay on as a part of our team. Okay. Next, Sergeant Major, you got another one?
Roger that, sir. I do. Next question. What is the status for soldiers who have returned from AIT and need to be handed off to their unit? So what's taken place is, we back it up a little bit. When you're an RSP soldier, you belong to the recruit sustainment program, and you're a part of the recruiting and retention battalion. When you go to MEPS, you sign on the dotted line for whatever that MOS is that interests you, and you're going to belong to that unit when it's all said and done. But until that time, until you come back from training and we've officially handed you off, you belong to us. So the guidance that's taken place is, once you come back from basic and AIT and your training is complete, your unit may be reaching out to you and they may be contacting you, but you do not belong to your unit. You do not attend their drill weekend until we have the opportunity to hand you off. You are quarantined for 14 days when you come back, and that meets with the Department of Defense's policy and the state of Idaho governor's policy currently, that anybody coming back into the state that has traveled from outside the state and returned, you got to quarantine for 14 days. So your RSP NCOs are going to reach out to you, and they're going to get their hands directly on some of your paperwork to make sure that your pay isn't affected, that we get your documents uploaded in the system, and get you completely prepared, you know, in the computer system for that handoff when it happens. But while you're undergoing that 14-day quarantine, you know, you're basically going to belong to us. You know, when you come back from basic training in AIT, technically we have 2 drilling periods to get you completely prepared to hand off, and we've reduced that time way down. And most of your units they're super excited about having you come drill with them. And that's why they reach out and they call you, because they want to get you going, they want to get you up to speed, issue your gear, and get you doing soldier things with them. But we want to make sure that the quarantine process is followed, all the paperwork is where it needs to be. And then once that quarantine period is done, we will contact you and we will contact the units and we will work at getting you transitioned over. And the last thing that happens is your RSP NCO, he pushes up to recruiting retention headquarters and gets that paperwork signed off that says you can be basically unattached from recruiting and retention, and you can be moved over to the unit you enlisted into. What's important about this is that RSP NCO, if you raised your right hand for any sort of bonus, entitlements, benefits, if you get $20,000 that's coming to you broken down over 5 periods, that RSP NCO is the guy that transmits the paperwork to get those payments started. So if you come back from basic training in AIT and you don't answer your RSP NCO and you just show up at your drilling unit, don't be surprised if you're missing that nice healthy bonus that you're supposed to get. So let the process work the way it's supposed to work, and we'll get you over there. And we always get the soldiers handed off well before the 2-month period has happened. So hopefully that answers your question directly.
Okay, I've got one from Pate Wilson Smith. What's the best way for my son to stay ready and strong and disciplined while he waits for the shipping date? And this kind of goes along with another person who's talking about being on a medical or dealing with medical issues right now, and medical facilities being closed and trying to get better. And both of these are really kind of tied with one another. All of you can go out and do a 2-mile run. You can do your push-ups. You can do your sit-ups. You can work physically towards on a daily basis. There's no restriction from the state of Idaho. Maintain your social distancing, just like the governor has advised us to do. And you're meeting that, you know, I'm staying away from everybody for 14 days. It doesn't preclude you from getting out and staying physically active, doing stuff in your backyard, you know, anything. Push-ups and sit-ups and running are something we can all do individually without having to have a whole bunch of expensive equipment. But you've got to do it, and you've got to have the discipline to do that every day. The only way to get better at running is to run. And whether that's 3 times a week or 4 times a week, you've got to get out and do this. And it will also help with being, you know, stir crazy cabin fever. But you have to have the discipline and decide, you know, what time of the day am I going to go out and do this? As far as being medically or dealing with medical issues for some of our folks that we have, continue to follow your doctor's guidelines. But having gone through some of those things myself, you know, they gave me specific exercises to do, and be disciplined to just continue to work on those exercises on your own. You know, this is really our responsibility, and this is where we show discipline, where we take the initiative to do this stuff without somebody else, making us do it. That will get you prepared. That will help you that way. Now, as far as in the academic side of it, there's not a lot you can do to prepare for basic training in the AIT. That's why we have RSP drill. And again, we're going to get back to RSP drill as quickly as we can, which is that academic preparation, knowledge preparation for basic training.
Okay, got a question here from, looks like Emma Zufelt. Hopefully I pronounced that right. It says, with the 2-week quarantine, do we need to quit our job since we will mostly, and I'm going to imagine most likely, ship afterwards? No, we're not telling you to quit your job. So if you're currently employed and they haven't shut things down at your employer, take your precautions. You need to wear your mask. You need to wear your gloves. you need to, if you're working, go in and work. What they're talking about quarantine means that you're not going and hanging out in Walmart, in Albertsons, in Winco without proper protections. You're not sitting outside of Dutch Brothers with 10 other people drinking some frosty beverage without taking precautions. You just want to be smart about it. You want to protect yourself and really protect the other people around you. So when they ask you those questions on the 14-day attestation form for quarantine, like, have you maintained quarantine? Yeah, I haven't gone to the gym. I haven't went to the bars recently. I haven't, I'm not hanging out in the normal haunts and the normal locations. I have done my due diligence and worn my mask and my gloves anytime that I have. So definitely, we're not asking you to quit your job. So hopefully that answers your question. You got one, sir?
Yep. A few of you may have issues with, like, where do you quarantine when you get back? If you're staying with either guardian, this specifically who's dealing with grandparents, that's a unique situation. Let your recruiter know. We don't have barracks, we don't have facilities. I don't have a good answer for you on that one. Can we try and find some place? Can we reach out to our other RSP soldiers? I don't know. I don't want to give any kind of answer necessarily other than let your recruiter know about that specific issue that you might have, that you don't have a place to safely quarantine when you come back. Now, you got to understand that this is going to change over the next few months. So if you ship in June and you're coming back in November or December or whenever you're coming back, there's a good chance that this is going to change. A lot of what right now with the initial outbreak and the challenges that we're having, this is what they're doing to get a handle on the curve and handle on the situation and get it to settle down to a point where, maybe in a few months it's not going to be an issue. That's a really difficult question, and you're going to have to just continually advise us and let us know how we can help you deal with that ahead of time. And there's a few people, it's not everybody, but there's probably one or two people that are in that situation. So the other thing, there's been a ton of basic training questions. I know we've covered it a number of times. Basic training isn't getting any longer. It'll still be the 10 weeks. It's just 2 weeks of that is now in quarantine. And they're trying to stand up another basic training site to alleviate the backlog of basic training that's occurring. So a lot of stuff, it takes a little while to get the new battle rhythm down. And then all of a sudden that hits and we see this immediate drop in pressure, or, and then again, all the guidance and things will begin to adapt and change once these fixes start coming online, and they'll see what's needed and what's not.
Okay, I had a couple questions along the same lines. It says, will AIT have the same 2-week quarantine period? So following on this one, let's say you raise your right hand to be 11 Bravo, right? You want to be a dirt eater. And you go to basic training and AIT in the same location. So your AIT won't have an additional 14-day quarantine period. They're not going to stack it on top of each other. But let's say you go to basic training and then you have to get on a bus or you get on a plane and you have to fly to your AIT location following basic training. You will undergo a 14-day quarantine period. And basically what they're operating is that training base, like the Fort Jackson, Fort Sill, Leonard Wood, Fort Benning, they're operating under a bubble. And once you get inside the bubble, they keep you in a nice, safe location. They get your 14-day quarantine period to make sure that you're okay. And then they transition you into training. And once you're there, once you're on the base and you're operating inside of this quarantine-free, coronavirus-free location, then if your AIT location is also in there, you're not going to go through another quarantine period. You're just going to move out and continue training. So hopefully then I think that answers, will the 14-day quarantine be at home, MEPS, BCT, or somewhere else? Your 14-day quarantine period is at your house prior to shipping. And then it's going to be it'll be at the base, at the training site when you go. So.
Okay, Tyler Barlas, you have a very, very specific question about living in Western Washington. Yeah, that's one of the red areas. There's a couple counties in Western Washington that are very much on the bad end of the spectrum, or they were. As we watch things, we're also watching the metrics change on a daily basis. They give us reports by county. We have a map of the United States, and we can actually see how they're dealing with county by county. And so Washington's going to continue to change just like everything else is. You're going to be following the same kind of protocols, the 14-day quarantining before shipping kind of stuff. Now, if you can't make it over here to Idaho, because I'm assuming you were a student, this is where you were living, you were drilling here, then all of a sudden you're sent home, we're going to have to continue with you a virtual drill or virtual drill type of opportunities. Once Washington starts opening back up and they go to their RSP drills, we would have you drilling with them. But in your case, or in anybody out there that's in that same situation, you just need to contact the RSP coordinator from your company, talk to your recruiter, and we'll make arrangements. If we can do virtual drilling and keep you attached to your organization, that's the preferable method. But if it shifts over to then you're drilling in that other state, we'll work with that. The biggest thing is your communication with us about those specific issues. We can't fix what we don't know about. We necessarily can't fix everything, but we'll do everything within our power to fix whatever it is that you've got going on.
All right, I got a couple questions here. The first one, and I think this is right along the lines of what the commander just answered. It says, hey, so I live in California, but I'm part of the Idaho National Guard. However, I've done my RSP drills in California as a guest in the past. My question is that if RSP is still under quarantine in California, but Idaho is doing in-person drills, would I stay in California and find alternate, or would I go to Idaho and do it? So Training and Doctrine and Department of Defense kind of answered this question directly in one of the fragos that they put out. So if you live in a state and you're part of a reserve component, and that's what the Idaho Army National Guard is technically, if you guys are still under stay at home and Idaho has returned to normal, I understand that you drill here and we may want to see you in person, but the safest plan and the plan that you will follow is you will maintain that stay at home order in the place that you live. And I imagine it's because you are a college student, and we will have to do the virtual training with you on the weekend. And I think that you're probably going to find that if you're on a stay at home order in, say, California, Oregon, your travel is going to be limited anyway. So your ability to get on a plane and fly someplace, unless it's an emergency situation or a Red Cross situation, is going to be limited no matter what. But best case scenario is you're going to pick up the phone, you're going to call your RSP NCO, and they will have the latest and greatest information. And if that means, hey, we're doing a virtual drill for you this month because where you're currently living is under stricter guidelines than Idaho is, then that's what it is. Because at the end of the day, the Department of Defense and the governor of Idaho, it's like, hey, if you're coming from a state that is currently still under a stay-at-home order and you're coming to Idaho, you're going to be quarantined here anyway. So it's not like you're going to get off the plane, you're going to do a 2-day drill, everything's going to be okay, and we're going to put you back on the plane. You'd have to be quarantined. And so it just doesn't make any sense. And in the end, it's probably going to cost you more money than it needs to. So pick up the phone, call your RSP NCO.
Okay. A couple of questions came from the same person, Wilhelm Dio, and I apologize if I messed up that name. But Wilhelm, he's asking, he ships the 18th of May, but if he doesn't ship, he wants to take classes being in college. And really, again, it's communication. We're going to do everything we can to ship you. And the thing, again, we're ahead of the curve, or we have been so far. We're one of 8 states that is staying out in front of this. And it is easier as a smaller state. So renegotiation or getting those shipping dates, it depends on the MOS what I would suggest is that you send up your specific information, send it through the chain of command, through your RSP coordinator, through your recruiter, and send that specific ask to us. For everybody else in college, same thing. I really hate to put you in these, we don't want you in this position, or we don't want you having to deal with this right now. But we don't know how to answer that question. The shipping rules and the way how many they're allowing to ship, that's a daily discussion. And there again, if a basic training site comes up online again, all of a sudden, that increases the shipping rates. We're going to keep and make sure that our lines of communication are open to you as much as possible. You just need to continually ask us, and hopefully we're right, because we're not going to be right in every situation with all of you, but we're going to do our best. And then the same thing is the precautions that are in place. Like if you end up showing up at basic training AIT because you've flown on an airplane and you get sick because you contracted something, that's why all these things are in place. If you end up going to basic training AIT and you get COVID-19 and it's something that becomes, actually visible, because there are quite a few people, they say about 50% that don't even show symptoms. If you're one of those who shows symptoms or it becomes an issue, they have their protocols to keep you safe. They have their protocols to treat you medically, and they'll take care of that. So they don't just kick you out. It's usually a recycle, or it all just depends on what happens in your specific situation. But all the basic training sites and all the armed forces has a procedure to deal with anybody who actually comes down and becomes symptomatic and gets really ill with COVID-19. Luckily, we've heard of no major outbreaks, no major issues. But again, that's the whole point of us talking about this, is that we're doing everything we can as Department of Defense to ensure your safety. And so that's why it's being so strict. That's why we're having everything shift so much.
Okay. Devin Goodson, will we receive full drill pay for virtual drills? So pretty much every unit in the state this month is going through some sort of virtual drill. And with the soldiers that come back from basic training in AIT, they have the CAT card. So they've got, multiple training sites they can get online, and they can do these trainings and turn certificates in to show and get credit with their unit that they're doing some sort of virtual drill, and to receive the full pay. With us, the most of our RSPs, it hasn't got to that point yet. Most of you guys haven't received your ID card, especially the ones that have been listed since the beginning of March. We know that you don't have a CAT card because we've been under this process. So the short answer is this: some of the 7 Army values are going to come into play here, and it's going to be completely on you. We are going to exhibit, and we are going to give you that shared mutual trust that you are going to do the things that your RSP NCO asks you to do on a drill weekend. You're going to participate in the trainings that he sends out. You're going to do like this. You're going to get on the Facebook Live and you are going to ask questions. You're going to engage in red phase training, white phase training, blue phase training. And yeah, is most of it by PowerPoint? You bet. It's death by PowerPoint, but it's one of the only options that we have right now. Your RSP NCO is going to reach out to you and is going to ask you, for social media ideas, go through the referral process, maybe send leads to the recruiters who are all working from home. Whatever that is, whatever that process looks like, we are going to trust that you're going to do it, and you're not going to blow your RSP NCO off. But for that, we will give you credit for drill. So it comes down to you. If you're supposed to be here engaged and you don't check in, let's say you didn't get on this live feed, you didn't check into this, you're not on the phone, you haven't called your RSP NCO. He talked to you on Friday, but he can't get a hold of you until Monday. We didn't see you online. You didn't email back that you received any of the trainings that we sent via email. You can probably expect not to be paid, because we had no way to prove that you were completely engaged with us on the weekend. So like we said before, just follow 7 Army values. It becomes really important. Mutual trust. We believe you're there doing what you need to be doing. Reach out to us and tell us you're participating.
And we really appreciate the time. We've been on about an hour now. A lot of questions that they came in pretty fast and furious at the beginning. It seems like we were able to answer quite a few of those. Got some thumbs up and some likes and hearts there. And it's about at any point in time in this whole situation, please, reach out and ask for clarification, ask for questions. It's a constantly changing environment. And one of the things that we've talked about nationally is that this may impact us for a long time. I told you I was a student in history. This could have some far-reaching impacts on not just the economy, but everything that we have going on, how we go to work every day, how we live our daily lives. And we're going to find what the new normal looks like in this process as a nation, as an organization, as families. So everyone's working through this new thing, and we're going to do what we can to facilitate everything we can. We're using these digital means to try to accomplish that in this short-term environment. But I can't emphasize enough, kind of my final words a little bit, that this is such an important organization. I've been here for 28 years, Sergeant Major, pretty much the same time frame. So enjoyable. It's not without the bumps and bruises down the road and the challenges that come and the inconveniences that come. But what a great organization to be a part of for so long. What a great organization to be a part of in communities and to help and reach out. And I wish more people took advantage of it. I'm grateful to all of you have. I'm grateful to all your parents. Trust us with you. And because, you're the future of our organization. And it's interesting working through this together with you. Those are kind of, I guess, I'll my final thoughts there, Sergeant Major.
So, kind of last couple things we want to say here from my chair before we sign off. We want to give this an hour. I know that you still have some training you have to go through with your RSP companies, and like I said, if you've been here any amount of time, you know that we have social media platforms. I think one of the last questions I saw before I started talking was, can we expect these kind of social media interactions to continue, or these connections? Absolutely. I think for the most part, your recruiting and retention NCOs all have Facebook pages. They've got social media accounts. Our social media pages, our Facebook page, our Instagram page, our Twitter account. Oftentimes, that's really the fastest way to get that information. I mean, you got your phone in your hand on a regular basis. If you've got a question, you want to get it answered, why aren't you reaching out like that? So what we want you to know and we want you to remember is this is a changing time, okay? And things that put into play on Friday afternoon are most oftentimes Tuesday morning going to be completely different because that's the the face of this changing environment. But here's what you need to remember. You went up to MEPS, you raised your right hand, you exhibited the 7 Army values before you even knew what you were doing by choosing to be one of the 2% that joined to serve the flag and to serve this great state. You trust in us that we will get you to training, and we're going to get you to training safe, and we are going to get you the things that we promised you. We're going to get you the MOS, we're going to get you the benefits and entitlements that you signed for, and we're going to bring you back here as a fully trained soldier and deliver you safely to your unit so you can continue training. You trust in those things because that's exactly what we're doing. No matter how many changes occur, that is what our goal is. Get you from point A to point B. A, raising your right hand. B, you're a fully trained soldier in the Idaho Army National Guard. That's what our goal is in Recruiting and Retention Battalion. So trust that we do that for you, and then we will trust that that you'll work with us in this ever-changing environment, show a little bit of patience, a little bit of humility, and that you will communicate with us. If you've got questions that need answered, you need to reach out to us. All right? I appreciate you joining on this Facebook live stream. And again, if you have questions, send them. I'm done, sir.
Thanks again, everybody. Keep the questions coming. We'll do this again. Your parents are always welcome to ask questions. Again, we appreciate your service, and you know, continue to do the good things that you do. So thanks again for showing up today.